Hi, this is Maria Di Costa, and you're watching me on My Goa, My India. A Libran and a true Goan to the core, Tagore Almeida wears many different hats in his life.
Hi Maria, this is Tagore. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It is such an honor, and I say that most sincerely because I've been looking at some of the people that you interviewed, and I feel like, wow, that's so great. Especially two people who I've looked up to and have been very instrumental in supporting me in my journey. One of them being our very own Remo Fernandez, and the other one being obviously Subi Samuel as well. So thank you very much, and as I said, I feel very honored to be able to be in this position to be talking to you.
He's a writer, director, producer, IT professional, and most important, he's the promoter of peace.
The social message I think is very relevant because I think cinema is such a powerful medium, if not the most powerful medium of within arts. So I think it's very important to use that medium in a very responsible way. Don't get me wrong, I love senseless comedies, and I love stories, and whatever else. I'm a big Avengers fan and Batman and everything else. But also at the same time, I think cinema has a very important role to play in society itself. So the films that I did so far were sort of were triggered by the uh, the need to do a humanitarian piece of work. So Austin was about that. A God of Sinners was about that. Having said that, the next film that I'm hopefully going to do called The Forgiveness, and hopefully with Neil Nitin Mukesh, the actor, it's not really a humanitarian story, but it's still, I think, a thought-provoking film as well. But besides that, there's still other ideas that we've done, and that just been made for the sake of entertainment. What I don't do, and what I won't do, is do a film that shows like an item song or does an abuse towards women or towards children. I think there's no need for that, because I think very unfortunately that's become a reality of our lives. So why glorify it on screen? Until unless it's an integral part of storytelling. The first film I wrote was called Sangeet, which is the Hindi word for music. It was about a band, more importantly about a violinist who played in a fusion band, and it was a love story about him being in love with two people. There wasn't infidelity in it. It's just that he at different parts of his life he had two wonderful women in his life, and that's what the movie was about. I wrote it by taking a sabbatical year from my work. Took it to Bollywood. Unfortunately, got the wrong people involved with it. They completely bastardized the whole thing. But I think it was a good lesson. But gave me a footing into the industry. But it was a good lesson to try and not trust people so much, and also a slap on my face that these people here were not there to make cinema necessarily, but it was a business for them. So they didn't care what they did with original material.
His first debut short film, A God of Sinners, graced many international film festivals, including the Cannes.
A Goddess is another story altogether. It was the first short film that I had directed that went to a lot of festivals around the world. It went to Asians on Film in LA. It went to Vancouver to an independent film festival, and obviously went to Cannes. It was amazing to be at Cannes because that was in the year when 100 years of Indian cinema was being celebrated at Cannes. So it was so cool to be there at such a prestigious moment. We got to interact with so many people. I actually got to see one of my favorite Hindi film directors, Anurag Kashyap. Got to interact with him at the Indian Pavilion. There was so much of buzz around Indian cinema, and it felt so good just to be in that little corner of it. So we went in there as a part of the short film corner, but we also actually did an official screening of the film as part of their program for a particular day. We got to interact with a lot of people, not only from India, from the south of India, but also a lot of filmmakers from Israel and from Iran, and obviously from the UK and so forth. It was really good because I think what had happened was that people had realized how strong the film was and what a strong message it was given out. So we kind of got hooked into being those guys who were like had a very strong story to tell, and it was done in such a fun way. I mean, the film's on YouTube. It's called The God of Sinners. A warning: it's very high in profanity, but it's a great watch and a very thought-provoking film as well.
His recent release, Ustain, starring the very talented Rajkumar Rao, has already taken the internet by storm.
Ustain, the movie of the moment, getting released, released on YouTube, starring the Rajkumar Rao. So many years ago, I got a phone call from the director saying, "Hey, I've been given your name by a common acquaintance." He said, I'm looking to make a film. I'm looking for a producer. Now, I've never been a producer in my life, but because of the common acquaintance, I decided to hear the guy out. I said, yeah, and I was going to say no. I just knew it because I'm not a producer. I have no idea how to produce a film. So we spoke, and I just said, why don't you just send me the script? I'll read it. Very well knowing I'm going to say no. He said, hey, I'll do something better. He said, I've already shot the film on a much smaller scale for a competition. I won first prize. I'll just send you the film. I said, okay. So he sent me the film, and I remember lunchtime in Dubai, I was working, and press play, and I clearly remember I couldn't get my eyes off the film. The film got over, and I called up Vikram, the director, and said, I will sell my house if I have to, but let's make this movie. And that's how Ustain was born. So Ustain is probably the most thought-provoking, powerful film that I've ever come across, a short film that I've ever come across in India. Even today, even though it was made about more than a decade ago, it is so relevant. It is so relevant not just for India and its neighboring countries, but for so many other countries who are unfortunately at war with their neighboring countries. Brothers are fighting brothers, and outsiders are taking advantage of it. It's such a beautiful film. It is written so well. It works on so many levels. Not because I've produced it, but I'll tell you something. If there's one film that you want to sit down and watch, and you want to think about it after the film, I'll be very surprised if you do not put Ustain in one of your top 10 films. So please do watch it. I think it's incredible, and I'm so glad that we've been able to now release it on India's largest short film portal, Royal Stag. So please go on to YouTube and look it up. Thank you. After that, there's been a few things. I'm hopefully going to be releasing my first novel at the end of this year. It's called An Emperor Cried. Then I'm also hoping, as I said, I was hoping to shoot a film with Neil Nitin Mukesh called The Forgiveness. But then thanks to COVID, we've had to put that on hold. So hopefully revive that project. And then next year, I have an intent to release a little booklet of verses that I've written over the years. I don't like to call them poetry because I don't think I'm clever enough to be called a poet. But I've written a lot of verses, about talking to the clouds and whispering with the palms and hearing the streams say a prayer, and also being able to write one or two love songs and recycle them a million times to different girls that I've known. So there's a booklet coming out called The Goan Who Sold His Fanny. That's going to be out next year sometime. And I think I'm doing it more because I like the name of the book rather than anything else. So yeah, look out for that.
Watch Tagore talk about his life, his films, and things he holds dear.
So a little bit about myself. Yes, so I was born in Mapsa, or Mapsha as we say in Konkani. My father is originally from Kansalim. My mom is from Kalangut. Having said that, I was raised in Bardes, so I'm very much a Bardeska, a Kalangutkar. I was raised in a beautiful, beautiful Vado called Agar Vado, which is still very close to my heart, and I miss it so much. In terms of school, I started off going to 3 different schools, not because I was a bad student or anything, but I started off first going to a school in Bastora, which was actually a girls' convent. And believe it or not, they had boys as boarders as well until the age, I think, of 6 or 7, which was terrible. And I was one of those boys, and I hated it because I was just stuck in a dormitory full of girls, and I hated it. And by the time I realized how wonderful girls can be, I was asked to leave because I was past that age. So that scarred me for life, I think. But then I lived with a couple of wonderful families around Bastora, and then I went to St. Brito's for about a year, and we finally moved. My mom moved me to live with my my grandmother in Agarwado, where I lived for the rest of my time in Goa, and I went to Little Flowers High School in Kalangut. It was great. It was absolutely great. I think one of the most important things about my life as a child was the years that I spent in Agarwado. Just a very simple, beautiful life, very simplistic people, you know, naive at times about worldly affairs, but there was the rice fields, there was the streams, there was the little copel, ringing the bell at Aimuri, where you left everything that you were doing. You could be in the middle of scoring that one important goal in the rice fields, playing football. But if you heard the bell at sunset, you left everything that you did and you came back. And I remember it was very simplistically beautiful, and I just wish that some of that can be retained in our lives going forward. So that was great. School was okay. I don't know whether I actually respected or understood school as much as one should do, but it was great. It was something to do every day. You woke up, you went to school, looked at the girls, annoyed the teachers, and came back. And by the time it was time to go and play in the fields, and so that was nice. Yeah, I know you wanted to know how my childhood was different from a lot of the other kids around me. I think the only difference that I had was that I never grew up with my parents. My parents were in the Gulf trying to earn a living, so I was away from my parents, and that kind of sucked a bit for quite a while. So I kind of missed the interaction with my parents and having that sort of family life. But my grandmother did a great job raising me up, thrashed the hell out of me many a times. I think that's all the wonderful things about growing up in Goa. Childhood was great, especially in Agarwado. So being bullied by your friends, going to church every Sunday morning, that little couple, look at all the pretty girls from the Vado all there. That was nice. But I think more importantly, I think what happened was I have had the pleasure to actually being raised in beautiful nature that we had in Goa. So I have been tickled by the by the stems of the rice fields. I've heard the waves whisper, and tell me stories from across the horizons. I've waltzed with the palm trees, So it's been great, and those are those memories that I still hold very close to my heart till today. So, childhood was spent mainly watching Bollywood films. So I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood, and obviously, like any other guy of my age, I mean, there was no other greater actor than Amitabh Bachchan, So obviously, Sholay was the one film that I could watch X number of times, and until recently, and even very recently, I mean, I watch Sholay once a week, and I watch Agnipat, Mr. Bachchan's other film, again, every week, and it's always playing in the background, and I'm always working, and then there are certain scenes in the film where I know exactly how awesome it's going to be, and I just stop what I'm doing and I have to watch it. Both the films, I can never watch the ending because he dies in both those films in the end, and it hurts me even now. It depresses me, makes me very sad. But yes, I grew up on a very staple diet of Bollywood. I did watch some English films, some Hollywood films, because we used to go to the Gulf to visit my parents during holidays. We used to go to these video cassette libraries and rent out movies. But my parents were very particular about what sort of films I was watching. So I think they felt relatively safe if I watched a Bollywood film compared to a Hollywood film where they were not sure what the content would be and so forth. So I never actually got into world cinema until I actually moved to London, and I began watching, and I realized that there were all these great films from all over the world, from Iranian films, Korean films, French films, Italian films. So that's when I actually got exposed to movies from around the world, and learning how other filmmakers thought, how other cultures were reflected in their cinema. Yes, I did go to London. My parents, being a very middle class family, but being in the Gulf at that time, were able to invest their money in their children instead of going and building these big houses and whatever. So my parents were very keen that I pursued a further education in the West. I remember being asked what I wanted to pursue, and I said I wanted to be a filmmaker. and I remember my mom hitting me on my head because my father never hit me, and said, "Ben, I'm going to send you abroad just to become a filmmaker." So my second choice was computer science. So I went to London. I graduated in computer science, and I worked there for a software house for a while. Being in London was probably a turning point in my life because I went from being a very naive, innocent, hippie influenced life in Goa where everybody lived in peace and harmony, and I went to London, and in London I think it made me a citizen of the world, and with that came the harsh reality that the world wasn't like a beautiful beach in Goa, like all the hippies and holding hands. People were fighting in the names of colors and races and religions. There was so much of hatred, and I never understood why. But also going to London actually turned me into an Indian. I became so aware of my Indian roots and my origins that I actually became very patriotically proud to be an Indian when I went to London. I loved London a lot. I owe all of my insights, a lot of my credibility to my years that I spent in London. It was great. Was I homesick? Of course I was homesick. I missed out on a lot of things, but I was very also fortunate because we have some family there, but I was also very fortunate to have lived with some very wonderful people. One of them was a Gujarati family who treated me like their own son. Then there were the Dents who had 3 sons, but fondly referred to me as their black son. So it was nice. I made some wonderful contacts there. The best friend I ever had in my life, Sanjay Bharat. I met him when I was in London. So it was an awesome time of my life. While I was studying and working in London, I decided to enroll myself in the London Filmmakers Co-op just to do weekend courses on various aspects of filmmaking. So I did that, and that's how I got into actually filmmaking, because it was a passion. It was a real passion of what I always wanted to do in my life. So that's how filmmaking came about. I did various courses for about, I think, 2.5 years or something. I spent all of my weekends actually just going and learning various things, using rostrum cameras and using 16mm cameras, concepts of editing and so forth. Yeah, and I'm so grateful that I had a chance to do that. My father, the late Tagore Almeida, used to be a writer, and he's done a couple of books in Goa. But he used to write a column on Gulab, so Poila Toshe Borela, so which he also did a long time ago with my godfather Felis Cardoz for a Konkani magazine called Sort, way back in time. So we bought his articles, and I'm kind of just looking to one day hopefully put together a great crew, very importantly, put together a great crew, find some great actors in Goa, who can actually, do justice to the language and do justice to the medium of cinema, and hopefully do at least a short film. I met my editor for God of Sinners is actually a Goan guy called Raghu Naik, and he was also very passionate about doing Konkani films. So yeah, it's there in the pipeline. I don't know when, but it's definitely there in the pipeline. As a gift towards Goa, as a gift towards Agarwado, and especially as a gift towards my father. Okay, so look, I haven't watched a lot of Konkani films in the past decade or two. I'm being very honest about it. There was this film about Chris Perry that was done. It was, I've heard great reviews about it. I was supposed to be introduced to that director by a common friend of ours in Mumbai, but that unfortunately never happened. But I'm very eager for it to come out on DVD, and I really want to watch it because I heard it's a great film, and all kudos to the team who are having made such a great film. In between, I would often bump, whenever I was in Goa, I would bump cousins or uncles watching Konkani films, which I was very sad about the quality of those films because they were actually we come from such a rich heritage of theats, you know what I mean? Our theats are not like other theats or other stage plays where, we have such great storytelling in Goa, in our theaters. But unfortunately, a lot of those artists have just taken a camera, held it straight, and just said action. And instead of being on stage, they're filming it in real locations. Unfortunately, that doesn't make a film. Filmmaking is a completely different technique altogether. But I think that I've seen a few music videos, Konkani songs, And I think the newer generation are kind of understanding the language of cinema, of different camera angles. They're using drones and so forth. So I think there's great hope. There's great hope. And given that IFFI is being, hosted in Goa, I think it's about time that we actually step up, up our game in filmmaking in Goa and make it into a proper industry that's gonna, provide jobs. It's gonna put us on the map of cinema, not just in India, but even globally as well. Because I think in terms of content, we have great stories in Goa to tell, and you can see that by the wonderful things that have been achieved, by our theatre artists. So Maria, thank you once again so much for having me on your show. As I said, and I mean it, it's such an honor to be on your show. To the rest of my fellow Goans, I just want to say, keep in touch. Please watch Usdin. Get in touch with me. I'm on social media, Tagore Almeida, and I hope that we can get together. We can do something together for Goa, for Konkani, for ourselves. Whatever it may be. We've got such a rich heritage, and we have such great stories to tell. And I hope that we can take that, put that onto this medium of cinema, or whatever else it may be. Let's reach for the skies. Let's reach for the stars. And our inspiration that we're seeking, like our very own Remo Fernandez, is one of us, and look how he's done it. And I think we need to stop looking further away and look at our very own, and look at the late Wendell Rodrigues, for example. Look at how they've achieved such great things. If they can, then there must be a reason why you can as well. Okay, so they worked really hard. They've reached for the stars. Worked very hard. Reach for the stars. We can do this. You can do this. As I say to all of you, especially to my co-villagers in Agarwado, to my co-students in Little Flower, and to all those girls who've been avoiding me, I just want to say Moga Sundi, and thank you once again, Maria. Absolutely grateful for this interview. Thank you.
Thanks, Tagore, for this beautiful, insightful conversation. And friends, if you've liked this interview, then please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.